The bleeding snow. The wind howled across the barren frontier like a wolf mourning the dead. Snow spiraled down in thick sheets, masking the trail Elias Boone had carved just hours before. Wrapped in a thick fur coat, rifle slung across his back, he trudged forward, eyes scanning the shifting white horizon. Jasper, his hound, padded ahead, nose low to the ground, tail rigid. The dog had caught a scent, and it wasn't Day. Elias narrowed his eyes. He'd learned long ago to trust the dog's instincts. Jasper never barked without reason, and now he growled, low and unsettled. Then he saw it, a heap of color against the endless white. Fabric, flesh, motionless. Elias dropped to one knee, heart quickening. It was a woman. Her dress was torn, soaked through with snowmelt and streaked with blood. Her face, pale as death, was framed by wet, wind-tossed curls. One of her boots was missing. Her fingers were bare and blue. He touched her neck. A heartbeat, slow and fading. Jasper whimpered beside him. Still breathing, Elias muttered, more to himself than the dog. He waked fast, wrapping her in his coat and lifting her into his arms. She was light, too light, like she hadn't eaten in days. As he turned back toward his cabin, she stirred faintly. "And Malcolm," she rasped. Elias froze mid-step. That name hadn't passed his ears in years. Not since the fire. Not since the betrayal that split his family down the middle. He looked down at her face again, as if seeing her for the first time. Who was she? But there was no time to ask questions now. The storm was worsening, and this woman, this stranger, was dying. The cabin door groaned open, letting in a gust of snow and wind as Elias carried her inside. He laid her gently on the cot near the hearth, then set to work, tending the fire, heating water, unwrapping her soaked clothes with careful hands. He didn't allow himself to look too long. Modesty still meant something, even hay. As the fire warmed her skin, color began to return to her cheeks. Elias wrapped her in blankets, then stepped back, watching her chest rise and fall in small, uneven motions. Who was she, and why had she spoken that name? Night deepened. Snow tapped at the windows in a steady rhythm. Elias sat across the room, sharpening his knife out of habit more than need. Jasper lay beside the cot, ears twitching every time the woman stirred in her sleep. She began to speak again, half-delirious whispers, fractured by fever. "Don't take me back. No more locked doors." Malcolm lied. Each word struck Elias like a match against dry tinder. He didn't want to listen, but he couldn't stop. His brother's name, spoken with fear and grief, was no coincidence. And if she was tied to Malcolm, then nothing about her arrival was accidental. Hours passed. Just before dawn, the woman's eyes fluttered open. They were wide, startled, the color of wet earth after a storm. She tried to sit up, but pain etched across her face. "Easy," Elias said, rising from his chair. "You're safe now." Her gaze landed on him, confused. Where am I?" "My cabin, about 6 miles west of Sundown Ridge. You were freezing to death in the woods. My hound found you." She looked down at Jasper, who gave a soft thump of his tail. "I remember snow, then nothing." "Name?" Elias asked. She hesitated. Clara Whitmore." The name meant nothing to him, but the fear behind her eyes did. He nodded. "Elias Boone." Clara blinked slowly, exhaustion pulling at her features. "Thank you, Mr. Boone." He studied her for a beat longer, then went to the hearth and ladled stew into a wooden bowl. "Eat when you can. Sleep when you must. We'll talk when you're stronger." Clara took the bowl with shaking hands. "You're kind. Most men out here aren't." Elias said nothing. The frontier had hardened him, but not past the point of decency. Still, her words hung heavy in the room. "Most men out here aren't." Later, as Clara slept once more, Elias stood at the window, staring into the wind-blown dark. His reflection stayed back, older than he remembered, with eyes that had forgotten softness. Clara Whitmore, Malcolm Rourke, a woman nearly dead in the snow, speaking his brother's name like a curse. Elias's jaw tightened. Whatever storm she brought with her, it had only just begun. The cabin's secrets. By the time the storm passed, 3 days had gone by. The forest outside lay still, blanketed in new snow. Inside the cabin, the air held the warmth of burning cedar, stew broth, and something else, uncertainty. Elias moved through his routine in practiced silence, sharpening tools, boiling water, feeding Jasper. But now, there was another rhythm in the room, the sound of Clara Whitmore breathing steadily as she slept. On the fourth morning, she sat upright on the cot and met his gaze for the first time without fear. "I dreamed I died," she said softly. "But you were there. You pulled me back." Elias didn't respond immediately. He poured her a cup of warm water and handed it to her. "You were half dead when we found you," he said. "Jasper did the hard part." She smiled faintly, resting a hand on the hound's head. "Then I owe you both." They sat in a long silence. Outside, a branch cracked under a blanket of snow. Inside, time seemed to still. Eventually, Elias spoke. "You mentioned a man. Malcolm. Was he the one who left you out there?" Clara stiffened, her fingers tightening around the tin cup. "I didn't think I said his name." "You did," Elias replied. "In your sleep." Her lips parted, then closed. For a moment, it looked like she wouldn't answer. But then she nodded slowly. "I was promised to him," she said. "Through an agency back east." I answered an ad, like many women did. It was that or stay and rot in my father's attic. My mother passed. My sisters married off. There was nothing for me in Boston. She took a slow breath. I thought I was coming out here to be someone's wife. But when I met Malcolm Rourke, he wasn't what he claimed to be. Elias didn't move. His jaw flexed once. What did he claim? That he was alone. That he wanted to start a family. That he needed a partner to build a homestead. She looked up at Elias now, her voice steadier. But he already had a wife. And children. He said I'd be the quiet one. That his real wife didn't need to know. I refused him. He got angry. Elias's stomach turned to stone. So I ran. Clara continued. The snow hit harder than I expected. I must have collapsed sometime near dusk. I thought I was going to die out there. Elias nodded slowly, every word confirming what he already feared. Malcolm hadn't changed. Still lying. Still using. Still ruining everything he touched. Clara looked down at her hands. I shouldn't be telling you this. You've already done more than enough. He folded his arms across his chest. You should tell me, especially because Malcolm is my brother. Her head snapped up. The cup clattered to the floor. No. I hadn't seen him in years, Elias said. We parted badly. He left a trail of damage behind, and I washed my hands of him. Clara stood, unsteady but fueled by disbelief. Why didn't you say anything? Didn't know who you were. Not really. Not until now. She turned away, her fingers trembling as they touched the edge of the window frame. So what happens now? You send word to him? Let him know I'm alive. No. Clara turned back to him, surprised. I don't owe Malcolm anything, Elias said. And neither do you. She stared at him for a long time. The wind brushed against the window panes like a whisper. I don't know what I thought would happen, Clara murmured. But I'm so tired of being someone else's property. First my father, then Malcolm. Now. You're not mine either, Elias said gently. You're here because you survived. That's all. A silence followed, not uncomfortable, but deep. Clara moved toward the fire, lowering herself onto the rug beside Jasper. The dog shifted closer, resting his head on her lap. I don't know how to thank you. Don't. She glanced at him. Just rest, Elias added. Heal. We'll decide the rest when the snow melts. She nodded, more to herself than to him. Maybe by then, I'll remember who I am. Outside, the snow began to fall again, gently this time, like an afterthought. Inside the cabin, something delicate had settled between them. Not love, not yet, but a fragile understanding, born in survival and shared silence. Elias turned back to his tools. His hands moved with mechanical precision, but his thoughts circled the same truth. Clara was more than just a victim of his brother's lies. And Malcolm wouldn't let her go so easily. A fire rekindled. The days stretched long, softened by thawing snow and the unspoken rhythm that Clara and Elias began to share. Each morning brought purpose, splitting wood, boiling coffee, tending to Jasper's matted coat, and each evening wrapped them in silence and flickering firelight. Yet underneath the surface, something heavier smoldered. Clara moved about the cabin with quiet confidence now. Her limp had eased, color had returned to her cheeks, and she no longer jumped at every gust of wind outside. But the shadows behind her eyes had not lifted. She caught Elias watching her one morning as she stitched the torn hem of her skirt near the hearth. "Something wrong?" she asked gently. Elias shook his head. "No, just strange having someone else in the cabin. I've been alone a long time." Clara offered a soft smile. "You don't strike me as the lonely type." "I didn't think I was," he admitted, "until you arrived." They didn't speak again for a while. Jasper groaned and stretched by the door, and the logs in the fire snapped with sudden energy. Later that afternoon, Elias took her outside to show her the snare lines. The air was crisp, the snow softened from the sun, and the world felt momentarily bearable. "Pull the branch like this," Elias said, guiding her hands with his own. "It has to spring when the weight's right. Small game won't set it off if you tie it proper." Clara's hands were cold but steady beneath his. Her breath came in small puffs in the air. She looked up at him then, eyes searching. "You think I'll need to hunt?" she asked. "Better to know than not," Elias said, "even if you never set a trap again." They shared a smile, but it didn't last long. "I've never had someone teach me things like this," Clara murmured. "Only ever told what I wasn't allowed to do." Elias stepped back, giving her space. "Out here, survival doesn't care what you've been told." She nodded, biting her lip. As they walked back toward the cabin, she slowed her steps. "When you and Malcolm, when things fell apart, was it over a woman?" Elias looked straight ahead. "No, over something wise." He didn't elaborate, and Clara didn't press him. That night, the fire burned brighter than usual. The stew was thicker, and the silence between them heavier. Clara sat curled in Elias's chair, his old blanket wrapped around her shoulders. He poured 2 cups of boiled whiskey and handed her one. She raised it in mock salute. "To survival." Elias nodded. "To clarity." They drank, and the warmth settled into their bones. After a long pause, Clara spoke again. "I sometimes wonder if love's just a story women get told to keep them obedient, to make them step into carriages and leave everything behind." Elias set down his cup. "Maybe it's just a story men tell themselves, too, to feel like they're saving someone." Clara turned toward him. "You didn't save me. Not in the way people mean it." Elias raised an eyebrow. "You didn't fix anything," she continued. "You just let me exist. Without conditions. Without shame." He blinked, not sure how to answer. She stood, slowly, walked across the floor, blanket trailing behind her. When she reached him, she placed one hand gently on his chest. His breath caught. "I don't know what this is," she whispered, "but it doesn't feel like pretending." Then she kissed him, soft, hesitant, full of questions, and Elias kissed her back. The world seemed to fall quiet outside the cabin walls. For a brief moment, there was no Malcolm, no broken past, only the hush of firelight, the weight of longing, and the warmth of another soul not asking for anything more than to be seen. But afterward, Clara pulled away, guilt etched on her face. "I'm still his," she whispered, as if confessing a crime. "Not legally, not in heart, but in the eyes of others." Elias looked at her with solemn understanding. "You were never his," he said. "He bought a contract. That's not the same." Tears brimmed in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. "I need time," she said. "You'll have it," Elias answered. She turned and retreated to the cot, pulling the blanket tighter around herself. Elias remained by the hearth, staring into the flames as if they held answers. Outside, the wind had picked up again. The snow was no longer gentle. It scratched against the windows like a warning. Neither of them knew it yet, but the cabin would not remain a sanctuary much longer. Reckoning and release. The knock came just after dawn. 3 sharp raps, hard enough to shake frost from the shutters. Elias was already standing by the hearth, rifle in hand. Clara sat up on the cot, eyes wide with dread. Jasper growled low from beneath the table. They didn't need to guess. They already knew. Elias opened the door slowly, gun raised. Malcolm Rourke stood in the snow, face weather-beaten and smug. His coat was lined with fresh wolf fur, his boots clean. Behind him, a saddled horse pawed at the earth, restless. "Took me a while to find this place," Malcolm said, tone casual. "Didn't expect you'd be the one nursing my runaway back to health, little brother." Clara rose from the cot, her breath catching. "I told you not to follow me. You thought I wouldn't." Malcolm stepped inside without permission, shaking snow from his coat. "You're mine, Clara. I paid the fee. Sign the papers. You're not done with me until I say so." "She's not yours," Elias said, stepping between them. "She never was." Malcolm laughed, the sound hollow and bitter. "Always the noble one, weren't you, Elias Boone, protector of strays?" His gaze landed on Clara again. "You've been sharing more than just food. I take it." Clara's voice was steel despite the tremble in her frame. "What happened between Elias and me has nothing to do with you. You lied. You trapped me. I don't belong to you. You think anyone's going to care about that in town?" Malcolm sneered. "You'll still be seen as a whore who broke her contract." Jasper growled louder now, teeth bared. Malcolm glanced down. "Call your mutt off." Elias didn't move. "You need to leave." Malcolm's hand dropped to the revolver at his hip, and the room tensed. "Don't be stupid," he warned. "You always were slow to learn when to back down." "I won't tell you again," Elias said. "You lay one finger on her, and I'll put you in the ground." Silence fell, heavy and absolute. Then, with a sneer, Malcolm stepped back toward the door. "You think this is over?" he said. "You think you can steal what's mine and get away with it?" "I think," Elias replied, voice like flint, "you need to crawl back to whatever hole you came from before I change my mind." Malcolm lingered a beat longer, as if weighing something unsaid, then turned, mounted his horse, and rode into the snow. The cabin door closed with finality. Clara collapsed onto the bench, face pale. "I thought he'd kill us both." "He might still try," Elias said, setting the rifle aside. "But I'm done running from him. We both are." She nodded, dazed, staring into the fire. "He'll ruin me. My name. My chance at starting over." Elias crouched before her. "Then we don't stay here. We leave." She looked at him, startled. "Spring's near," he continued. "We pack what we need. Follow the southern trail through the valley. I've got friends down in Red Hill. No one knows Malcolm there. No one cares." Clara opened her mouth to speak, but her throat caught on the words. "You do that for me," she whispered. "Leave your home." He met her eyes. "It stopped feeling like a home the day you got up from that cot." Tears spilled down her cheeks, and this time she didn't wipe them away. "But what if he follows again?" Elias stood and offered her his hand. "Then let him." She took it. That evening, the storm lifted. Snow gleamed silver under the moonlight. Clara stood by the cabin door with her bag packed, the fire behind her now just glowing embers. Elias joined her, Jasper trotting at their side. She looked back once, not at the cabin, but at the person she used to be. "I left Boston thinking I was about to start a life," she said softly. "Turns out, I had to nearly lose it first." Elias nodded, adjusting the rifle across his shoulder. "Sometimes you have to go where no one's looking for you, just to find yourself." As they stepped into the snow-covered woods, the wind quieted. No longer a warning, but a farewell.